All right, here we are with my friends at March. We have Gary Costello on the left and we have Mary on the right. And you flew all the way in from Japan, correct,
Yes,
Mary?
yes.
And you have your whole team with you?
Yes.
And you know, I'm a huge fan of these scopes. I fell in love the minute I got my hands on that Majesta. Gary here was instrumental in helping me choose the reticle that best fit my needs. 6 reticles on that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's go take a look at that here. So here is the Majesta. You guys have seen it in my other videos.
There we go.
And, you know, I know a little bit of the history, but walk me through kind of what made you guys decide that you needed to do a dedicated F-class, wide angle. Like, there's so many things about this, the shurikens and everything about it. Help me understand, like, when this started, the process, who got their hands on it, you know, how did it become such an amazing scope?
So we had an original 8-80, which is probably what, 8-9 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And it was time for that to change. So it's a great scope. It does a lot of things. A lot of people won lots of competitions with it. But optically, Dion felt it could be better. And they always strive for optical excellence. So this was in R&D for probably 2 years. Maybe more, yeah.
Secretly.
And we discuss all these things and we look at the merits and demerits, and the features on this scope are more or less what we feel is appropriate to the competitive market. So there's lots of new features on this that don't appear on the old scope.
And I think what's really interesting is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, really Dion and March went to the distributor. So we have Gary from the UK, we have Doug here from Canada, we have all these different influences that were able to come together to really help make the scope the best possible, right? You guys just weren't in a bubble in Japan and then said, here, deal with it, right?
Right.
So with the R&D for a competitive scope, there's a lot of input from a lot of people. There's some research, a lot of research done, and there's wishes. So a lot of shooters say, we would like this. Then you have to evaluate whether that is something that can be done within the budget and the time constraints. So there's a lot of features in here that a lot of people wanted and more.
And what was the number one feature? Like when you guys said we're gonna completely strip this thing down and rebuild it, number one feature that people asked for that you said this has to be the top priority, what was that?
Number one feature will be the majestic image quality.
Okay.
Yes.
So explain to me what the majestic image quality means.
Well, so this has the high master lens system, which assembles 2 super ED lenses in these scopes,
okay,
which means that it is very close to pure fluorite. So there will be very minimal chromatic aberration, and the shimmer protection is incredible with this majestic image quality. So even at 80 power, you can see clearly, even under the heavy mirage. So our optical designer searched for new lens material, which is a secret. So that's why we call this scope Majesta.
Okay. And so for those that aren't familiar with it, chromatic aberration is something that, you know, both photographers, shooters, anybody that deals with high-end glass or any kind of glass deals with chromatic aberration. But explain to people in a simple way, what is chromatic aberration and why is it so bad for, in our case, rifle shooting?
So chromatic aberration is like small, like coloring around the fringe. It's not a crystal clear image which you will get.
Okay.
So when you see the target, you want to have like no coloring. With this Super ED lenses, you won't have it. It's just sharp.
So edge to edge.
Edge to
Clarity
edge.
from one edge right to the other edge.
Okay. So after you got past the majestic lenses, what was the next wish that everybody wanted that you then added on?
I would say field of view.
Field of view.
While this has the wide field of view, this has 25 degrees field of view, which for the standard models, it's 20 degrees. So the other popular scope for F-class is 10 to 60 by 56 millimeter.
High master.
Yes.
The high master.
Yes. That also has 2 super ED lenses in it, but that one has 20 degrees.
Okay.
So this one has 25 degrees.
And that probably adds another layer of complexity, right? Because the more you do that, the more you affect potentially image quality, right?
Yes.
Everything that you change influences something else. So you can fix one thing, but then you have to fix everything else. Now, 5 degrees doesn't seem a lot, but when you're 1,000 yards away and you can see more targets, you can see the top and bottom of the target, you can see the colors on the boards, and you can see things that you couldn't see before. I mean,
neighboring targets
yeah. For sure, but also you can get places on the target where there's a little bit of mirage, a little bit of air movement, which you wouldn't normally see. I've seen movement where I would never see it before previously, and it gives you that edge, that extra 1%, 2%, which is critical at the level that competitive shooters are shooting at.
One thing I've noticed with mine is the eye box is really generous as well.
Yeah.
I mean, really forgiving. You don't find yourself hunting behind the scope. You get on it, you've got a full field of view. I imagine that's not easy to do, right?
Okay, so regarding the wild field of view,
Yeah.
when you calculate into the area, it will be 156% larger than the 20 degrees field of view.
Wow, so that 5%'s a lot.
Yeah.
It's another couple of targets.
So when you calculate into the area, it's phenomenal, and it will be like as if you were looking through an IMAX theater.
Okay.
Yes.
Like going to the Sphere,
Yes.
which we did do.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. So walk me through some of the other stuff. The shuriken design. What what led you to put that on there?
Well, I mean, Mari's probably better at qualifying for this, but from the shooter's perspective, we can lock our turret. So basically, if we set our distance and we don't want to worry about anything, then if that turret doesn't move, you know nothing's been changed, nothing's been moved, and you can go with confidence. So you take it out your bag. Things get knocked. Okay, we're all supposed to try and check our elevations, but a lot of us don't. Obviously, it has got the zero set, and that's a new design as well.
That zero set was really easy to use.
So you didn't have a zero set before, did you?
Or
did
you?
you?
It depends on the scope I use, but I've had both.
Yeah.
I can tell you life is a nightmare without one.
Yeah.
Especially when
Big
you're
difference.
shooting Palmas.
Yeah.
I've had scopes that weren't even a full 10 minutes on the dial.
Yeah.
And so when you're moving 8,000-9,000 and you're having to do double rotations, it can be you can get lost real quick. But I will say that zero has been so easy to move. Every time I put a new barrel on and I need to just get a new zero on it,
You just change
loosen
it,
it, move it, tighten it, cinch it down.
That's
you're
the
done.
whole idea.
Yeah.
The other design feature was easy to read and clear and concise turrets with wind direction. So you can look at your turret and easily identify. If you're in one of those days where the wind just changes 360 left and right, you want to make sure you know where you've put your wind. You can't just rely on memory. So having this turret and the way that it's been designed is again an evolution on the older model. There's nothing wrong with those turrets, but being able to see everything and use your brain quickly and easily.
And they're very positive.
Yeah, very positive.
Very positive, I've noticed.
Yeah.
I feel very confident on those for sure. The parallax adjustment, very smooth.
Yeah.
The illumination, like in Soupy Mirage, to be able to pop that on and be able to get a real clear read on the reticle. I love that.
Yeah, the other change is the fast focus.
Okay.
So your eye diopter, you can adjust that really quickly. You can lock it down.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, it's probably no real need to change it. But whereas before it was a locking system, but there was a ring. So if you lost it, you'd have to keep trying to find it. So all these are just, improvements generation after generation.
Absolutely. What's the one thing, maybe that we haven't covered that you want people to know about your scopes? About the Majesta or just March in general?
The quality,
Definitely.
the manufacturing process, the components, all those features make a March way different than any other rifle scope that's out there.
So that's something that a lot of people are probably going to try to say. What is something that really would get people to understand what sets it above? Is it the grinding? Is it the sourcing? Or is it just every step of that is taken to an extra level so it compounds in quality?
Well, more than 150 parts are used to assemble a single scope. So we make sure that we only use top quality Japanese parts. So our president will sometimes visit our suppliers and make sure that they maintain the quality level. So we only use top quality parts, and all the assemblers are experts, and we hand assemble each scope. So we are very meticulous with what we do. The reason many people may not know March is because we don't do paid advertisements. We invest a lot in R&D and the quality, parts quality itself. So I wish more customers can check it out themselves, and they will know for sure.
There's a lot of big manufacturers out there that have huge budgets.
Yeah.
And not most, but a good proportion of the cost of the scope goes towards those big advertising budgets.
Yeah.
So I'm not knocking any competitors. There's lots of good scopes out there. But if you were to price that at a true value, it will be an awful lot more than it actually is.
Yeah.
So hence why, who's March? Who are these guys? If you know, you know.
Right.
But it would be nice to get a bit more recognition. But it's getting there with social media and guys like you taking us on board and things like that. So there is only so much you can do in a relatively small company.
So let's talk about that. We've talked about the Majesta. Obviously, you guys know I love that. It's what I won the Nationals with last year. But you do more than just the Majesta. I know you've got some really innovative designs in dual lens technology. And did somebody just take it, or you got one? There we go. It's not. I'm not going to be able to show you through the reticle here, but explain to me what makes this. And I've looked through it, and I'll tell you, it's mind-boggling. You have to really wrap your brain around what's happening here. But tell me what's going on with this.
Okay, so dual reticle is a very cool feature. It has both merits of FFP and SFP. Okay, so the cross line and the daylight fiber dot reticle is in SFP.
Okay, so second
focal plane.
It doesn't get bigger.
So at whatever magnification, the size and the thickness of the line will always stay the same. And the hash marks and the dots for the tree reticle are in first focal plane, which means that they will be 1 mil, will always be 1 mil at whatever power.
Yeah, but visually you're going to see it grow.
Yes.
But it will always bracket your target the same distance.
Correct.
So you've got the beauty of being able to use your subtension in your reticule, which will correspond the clicks on your turret. Whereas second focal, you can only do that on a set predefined zoom value.
40 power, 50 power, whatever.
Well, like March has 20, 40, and so on, which is a lot more than any other second focal type scope. So the beauty of this is you don't have a fence post at high magnification in the center, but you can still range, you can still bracket, you can still adjust and use your reticule to adjust your shot very quickly.
And that's really important. Like for people that don't shoot long range, a first focal plane, if you're shooting a target, can easily overpower a target.
Very much.
And that's one of the struggles that a first focal plane is always going to have at long distance. So the advantage here is you can use the Christmas tree or whatever reticle is in there, but still have a very precise aiming point that isn't going to change.
And the other beauty of this, you've got a small illuminated dot on, say, 1 power, but as that expands on some of the reticules, you get an aiming circle. So as it gets bigger, you have more precision within that circle.
Oh, wow.
So you can use it as a flash dot, like red illumination on 1 power for snap shooting and quick shooting. But then you have the beauty of using it for longer distance and longer range and using the internal part of the reticule.
That's it's really cool to see because I'm even somebody who between my 22 shooting will switch between a first focal and a second focal depending on what kind of shooting I'm doing. And so just wrapping my brain around the fact that you could really have a scope that does both, it's just really weird to think.
So, I mean, this is LVPO.
Sure.
So, this is probably the smallest, lightest 1 to 10 in existence with side focus.
Yeah.
So a lot of them don't have side focus. So
that's
it
amazing.
gives you that beauty of being able to use it with two different sort of defined uses.
Yeah.
So for a guy that wants to just go snap shooting, that's great. But then he can use it as a proper scope.
Yeah. All right, cool. Did you have something you were going to add?
Well, you can, focus from 10 yards to infinity.
Yeah.
So you
10
can
yards?
So you can
On a
shoot
lot of the
at,
marks go down to 10
yes.
or less, even the big ones.
And-
yeah, I know my Majesta
yeah.
goes down really
And
low.
the reason why not all the manufacturers offer dual reticle is because there are two reticles in one optical structure,
Oh, wow.
which means that you have to align the first focal plane reticle and the second focal plane reticle as much as perfectly as you can. So that requires expert craftsmanship,
Yeah.
which we are very proud of.
Yeah.
So that's why we are able to offer it.
Cool. The last thing, I know you guys have a fairly new line, the Genesis line, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that. Is it so it's over on this side? Look at that. March shooter, Tim Vaught, national champion.
Oh, John, you got to cut that out.
All right. So here's the Genesis line. Now, I know nothing about this, so I'm a complete novice with the Genesis line. Explain to me what I'm looking at.
So Genesis evolved, forgive the pun, but it did, maybe 2015 onwards, and it was basically to answer a requirement. ELR was just starting back then. There was lots of bolt-on bits and other things you needed to do to get a scope to dial out to 2 miles.
Okay.
So, and each of those had its detriment. You know, you had a periscope, prism, a wedge, a great big inclinated rail.
Yeah, adjustable rail
yep,
mounts.
Yep,
and-
and
yeah.
it was really difficult.
Okay.
You could not dial that distance. So we, a group of us, approached Mr. Shimuzu-san, who's the president, which he is over there.
The black suit?
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Oh, there he is, president.
He's the chief designer.
Say hi.
And we said, can you build something that will do all of this? And he scratched his head a little bit and shook his head a little bit and
smoked a little bit.
Smoked a little bit. We have a thing where he does some magic smoke. So basically, he went away, and then about 6 months later, these designs appeared.
Wow.
And there was all sorts of different concepts. And unfortunately, it's impossible to make a scope in a conventional body that has that much elevation. Within the constraints of the body tube, it's not possible.
Okay.
You can only go so far.
Sure.
And when you have your adjustments way up at the top, the optical clarity degrades. You get all sorts of funky things go wrong.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there. I mean, I would always say any rifle scope, apart from this one, stop a few MOA or a mil from the top.
Right.
Get yourself a rail or don't
Yeah.
push it, because
Yeah.
you will see degradation.
Yeah.
So out of the designs, this evolved, this came about, and it's basically an external adjustment scope internally within the body.
It's just
So
crazy.
So this will move. Can you see that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's this rubber.
There's a gimbal system. Very,
oh my gosh.
very
Okay.
technical.
Let me see if we can see that
This
on
is-
camera.
there we
You go ahead
go.
and move that again?
Yep.
Wow.
So when I click that will move. Can you see that moving?
Wow. So that is this moving. He's not moving the stock. He is moving only the scope.
So there's
Wow.
very complicated
So it's-
mechanics in here, and there's some return springs. So basically, when it does get where it goes, it will lock into place.
Wow.
So in the traditional scope, there's an erector tube
Uh-huh.
inside the scope, and when you turn the elevation, the tube inside will move. So when it's near the maximum elevation travel amount, you will be looking through the edge of the lens, whereas for Genesis, the scope itself inclines. So no matter how much elevation travel amount you adjust, like for this 6 to 60 by 56 millimeter, it's 400 MOA, and or 114 mil. But because the scope itself inclines, you will always be looking through the center of the lens.
Because you're moving the entire
Yes,
assembly.
yes.
So your optical quality will always be the same. It'll always be superb. This has the high master lens system in it. It has all the same coatings and all the technology that the top end scopes go to. So all you need is this. You don't need anything else.
That is. So I was here yesterday, just kind of walking around, and I saw those whatever you want to call them, the rubber grommets there, and I couldn't figure out why they were there. But as soon as you started moving that, like, it just blew my mind.
And there's a lot more to it than that.
I'm sure.
But this is the basics of the scope. And, you know, we designed Picatinny rail for a laser or a red dot or rangefinder. So you can actually mount it. It's integral, it's square.
And it's independent of your actual optic system.
So in ELR, a lot of guys want to use a very sort of easy refractive sight or a dot sight to get themselves lined up. You can put a rangefinder on there, as I said, and we have the mount. So this mount comes in two sections. You have a low section and a high section, and that has 150 MOA built in. So that will allow you to get your very short range zero as well as your 2 mile capability.
It goes up to 3 miles.
Yeah.
So this completely eliminates...
Subject to the rifle, of course, yeah.
So this completely eliminates the need for any refractive prisms, the Charlie Terax, any of that kind of stuff?
Zero.
No.
Wow.
No external...
So the height also allows you to adjust for cheek. So when you have got a long distance shot, you may have the cheek piece if you use one. So you can have a high or a low. So basically, that's the high one there. You see that?
Okay.
So you can swap them out. And that bolts directly into the underneath of the scope.
Wow, that is mind-boggling.
There's two versions of this scope. So this is the big one.
Can I
Yes,
add another
please,
one?
carry on.
This scope also has a wide field of view.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which is very close to 25 degrees.
Wow.
So you will also have the IMAX theater effect as well. And this also has temperature anti-drift lens system, which means it will naturally adapt to the weather, to the condition.
Well, without adversely affecting it. Wow, that is and are these on the market?
Oh yeah. That's the big one, and then we have the baby, which
that's
is
the 440. So this was a 6 to 60.
Yeah,
and that's a 440.
That has slightly less elevation, but it'll still get you past 2 miles, whatever what you're doing.
300.
300. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's crazy because you guys kind of mentioned it yesterday, but it's not my wheelhouse. But it's pretty mind-boggling to think. Yeah.
There was one more scope, and that's new for 24, which is our 5 to 42, which is our long-range scope.
Okay.
But that has had a generation upgrade. So can we grab that one? Here we go. Right. So this one is a first focal. It's really a long-range shooter scope, steel, tactical, ELR. This has 140 MOA or
130 MOA.
Sorry, 130 and 40 mil.
40 mil.
Okay.
In elevation. So you're available in mil and MOA.
Wow.
So this again has the new turret system, the Shuriken locking turret, which is the shape of the Japanese throwing star.
Yeah.
So we called it Shuriken. You have your fast zoom there. Sorry, your fast diopter and locking. We have the zero set like your scope. We have the locking parallax, and you have your illumination.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen the locking parallax.
Again, that if you're on a string and you knock your scope and then you have to go back and readjust it, you don't want to be doing that, wasting time. So that's another feature. And the big change in this is the lens system. This has got the new high master lens system. Okay. Similar to the Majesta, not quite the same. Has the same sort of technology. And Mary probably can elaborate a bit more on those lenses.
Yeah, so the traditional, the current 5 to 42 and the Gen 2 both have a high master lens system, which has 2 super ED lenses in it. But the difference between those two are that the image quality near the maximum elevation travel amount has significantly improved with the Gen 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so for traditional scopes, we mentioned that the erector tube will be moving and you will be like looking at the edge.
Near the top or the bottom.
Yeah, but our optical designer has a secret weapon now.
So they sort of offset the lens so that you don't have that problem.
Yeah. So it will be so near the end it will still look brilliant.
Yeah.
And then to end it all,
Yeah, so
there is another concept.
this is, there we go, Concept 5 to 42, and we saw this briefly yesterday.
So again, it's the same scope, but it has some other improvements. Visually, you can see the flats. Now, aesthetically, I think they look pretty cool, but also they help with what you can see there.
So that is an integral mount.
Yes.
So that half the mounting system is in the scope itself.
Yes. Directly bolted into the body tube.
Wow.
So that's going to take away a lot of problems.
Weight?
Weight at the moment is heavy, but that's due to it's a concept. And there's going to be some design changes in this. But you can take away all those problems you have with rings.
Yeah.
Alignment, screws, all those things that we get customers saying, my scope doesn't work.
Right.
And most of the time, the result is down to the rings, to the way they're bolted, to the style of them, to the design of them.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very interesting principle, and it will be expanded upon.
Because for people that aren't like getting what we're looking at, we are looking at a scope that would literally be mounted like this. There's no ring that can crush a tube, that can be over-torqued, that can apply pressure in a weird way.
Exactly.
The scope gets to remain in its pure form.
Actually, John, that's the concept behind it.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it.
That's cool. So when do I get my Majesta like that?
Well, you never know. There might be a change in some things later on down the line. But I think
really cool
that's
design.
very cool. Yeah, and then the plan will be to offer it in different inclines.
Okay.
So you could have a 20 as standard, and then guys that want to take this further, they want to do more than 130 MOA, maybe 40. You want to go to a point where you can still get a short range zero, but gives you extra. So you're splitting the elevation between the two.
And I'm guessing because of the way that it's built, you could easily switch those out without affecting anything.
Well, theoretically, you could, if you know you're going to be shooting an ultra long range match, you could just swap the 20 for the 40.
Yeah.
Maybe get a longer zero, and you're good.
Yeah.
And this will actually turn this scope into a very ELR sort of potential one scope for everything.
Wow. Very cool. On a personal note, just these are very cool. These are the leather caps coming for the Majesta. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to those. There isn't one here to show, but we have March is doing a matching silver sunshade now.
Due to popular demand.
Demand. We're picky people, right? It's all about the look.
Indeed. Well, as Speedy says, if you don't shoot well, you might as well look good doing it.
Absolutely. Well, Mary, Gary, absolutely wonderful being here. I really appreciate everything. It's been wonderful working with March, and that scope was worth every penny I paid for it. I'll tell you that.
No, you're welcome. We thank you for using it.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
John. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Mary.
you, John.
All right.